Okay, pleased with, for the most part, how we played on Saturday. I thought we took a step forward offensively in a lot of respects. We still got a ways to go, but saw improvement in things we needed to see improvement in, most particularly the throw game, getting the ball up the field a little bit better. Special teams seemed a little bit more settled. We didn't do anything spectacular on special teams, but it was a good outing special teams wise. Defense, other than the first part of the game, played well, and then settled in, and we had a shutout in the second half, obviously, which was good to see. Northern Illinois, good football team, well coached, and I think they're going to win a lot of games this year. So now we move on to the last non-conference game this week. Got Idaho State coming to town. They just have the one game this year that they played last week, and then so we'll draw upon that, and we'll move on and see what we do. Questions?
What did the film tell you about short yardage offense?
Yeah, short yardage offense was not a strong suit. We had too many linebacker run-throughs and safety run-throughs. We got to do a better job with our offensive line, keeping our eyes and our head up and seeing those run-throughs and hitting that movement. And they gave us a lot of movement in general. And that typically is a feast or famine type of a defensive scheme. You're either going to make a big play in the backfield or have a crease that you give up. And they did a nice job with those blitzes. We did not do a nice job picking them up. And so short yardage-wise, we weren't as good as we need to be.
37 runs to 19 throws. I'm wondering what goes into the decision-making process with asserting yourself on offense versus taking what the defense is giving you?
Well, it's you have a plan going in based on what you've seen on tape, and then you got to get a feel for what they're doing for you, and if they've changed or what their MO is going to be that particular game. Also, when you get a lead, it lends itself to more running the ball at the end. So if you're if the game's in the balance or you're playing catch-up even, you're going to be throwing the ball towards the end instead of 8, 9, 10 straight runs. And so that kind of skews things. And so I don't think we're that far off. I think when the game is in the balance and we're running the offense, I think it's pretty even. But it does get a little bit out of whack when you shut it down in the fourth quarter and just run the football.
Kyle, can you kind of expound? This is obviously the last non-conference game. What do you want to get shored up before the SC game and Pac-12 play the rest of the way?
Well, first of all, to win the game. I mean, that's the number one objective. But as far as things to get shored up, short yardage run, as Kurt pointed out, we need to be better in short yardage situations running the football, or just converting, not necessarily running, but converting those short yardage situations. Like to see we were outstanding in the red zone. We were 5 for 5, so therefore no field goal attempts. I'd like to see where Jane Redding is field goal wise, give him a few shots. Although we'd rather not, because we'd rather score touchdowns. But it would be nice to see him kick a few field goals this week, see where he's at. Defensively, I think we're doing a pretty good job on defense. There's no real one glaring area that needs to be fixed, and so. Just keep playing consistently there, and that'd probably be the best answer I can give you.
Coach, what's your general opinion of playing FCS schools, and just how does that mainly benefit your team?
Yeah, there's a lot of debate, not a lot of debate out there, but there's arguments whether or not you should do that. I think it certainly benefits the FCS school financially. I mean, it's a payday for them, and we've done a lot of those FCS schools in state, with Weber and Southern Utah in years past. Not a lot, but a fair amount. And so I don't know. I think that there probably needs to be some uniformity as to the stance on that with the Power 5 schools, but right now where there's no guidelines or mandates, you just do whatever you want in those scheduling of those 3 non-conference games, and so I don't have a great answer other than I'd like to see it be uniform. I'd like to see it be a standard situation where not only that, but with, as I've said before, the number of conference games. I think there's a few things that need to be standardized with scheduling in the Power 5 conferences.
Kyle, what's impressed you about Julian Blackman's transition to the free safety position, and was he kind of a guy that you maybe always envisioned in that spot when he got here? Or is it one of those things where he just needed to show you guys what he could do at corner, and then versus the need at safety at the time, that kind of thing?
Well, it's always the priority is getting the best 4 or 5 in our case, because we play nickelback, a slot corner out there, and so it's a matter of getting the best configuration that you can, get your best athletes out there. We didn't always have that in the back of our mind to move him to safety, but as things evolved and he kept getting bigger, he's a big kid, he's over 200 pounds, almost outgrew the corner spot, but he's made a great transition. He looks like a natural. He's got a couple interceptions already. He's where he's supposed to be. As far as his positioning, he's got a great natural instinct for that position, and he's a ball hawk. He's got very good ball skills. And back to the original thing of getting the best 5 out there, it makes sense for us getting our best 5 out there to make that move. And Tariq Lewis has held up, and Josh Nurse, don't want to forget Josh, because both those guys have played very well for us on the outside so far. Bigger tests to come, of course, a lot bigger.
Kyle, you played the last game, obviously without some key guys like Orlando and Lecky and that. Do you anticipate having them back this week?
We hope. Don't know for certain right now. That's something that's up in the air. And it would be nice to get all those guys back. Some other guys played that were a little bit banged up, but seemed to come out of it okay. So we're okay health-wise right now. I think we're in a good spot relative to where we are in the season and what's ahead of us.
You seemed a little perturbed with the lack of attendance at the game or the size of the crowd. Any more thoughts on that? And
No
playing
more
early
thoughts.
games?
It's nice to see all the seats filled. That's all. And and I know the timing of the game wasn't ideal for our fans, and there's a lot going on in Little League football, and so selfishly, like we've said, we like to play in the morning, but it's probably not the best for our fans. But no elaboration on that.
Have you seen, or how many true freshmen have you seen make a debut the way Kidon Slovis did, throwing the ball all over the place?
Yeah, that was impressive. That was very impressive, but we'll worry about that next week.
You obviously talked about how well Tyler did on Saturday, but now that you've looked at the tape, I mean, what's kind of standing out to you in terms of how he's making that leap as a senior, as opposed to last year or the years before that?
His confidence. He's got a great deal of confidence right now in what he's doing. He's got a great grasp of what Andy's scheme is all about, and Andy's done a great job with Tyler. He's in the top 10 in the nation in QBR, which is that's what you pay attention to. If you want to know how your quarterback's playing, look at the QBR. That's the best analytic or evaluation of how your quarterback is helping your team out and contributing. And right now he's in the top 10, and that says a lot. That says a lot for him. He's making good decisions. He's being patient. He's not trying to force the ball into spots where you shouldn't be forcing it. He's being very judicious with his running. He hasn't, he took one big shot a couple weeks ago, but for the most part, he's being much more intelligent about his decisions in the run game. Him when he personally carries the ball.
How did starting your career with those 6 years at Idaho State shape you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if I have a great answer. I know it was excellent experience for me because I was able to be the special teams coordinator the first 4 years and then the defense coordinator the second 2 years, or the last 2 years. And so it was an opportunity because I didn't know a whole lot about special teams and to be able to be thrust in that role because our guy that was the special teams coordinator resigned like just a month or two ahead of the season. And so I just kind of got thrown into that and it turned out to be a great experience. And then coaching linebackers, that's all I coached there my entire time there was linebackers, but had the added responsibility of coordinator the last 2 years, like I mentioned. So I think it was very good for my development and learning. I was just a young coach that didn't know what he was doing and forced to learn pretty quickly.
All the losing, did that sour you on the profession at all?
No, it was a tough 6 years in a lot of respects, and that as far as the wins and losses being at the top of it, but and it was a little bit frustrating, but I was just excited to have a job and just be in the profession, and so at that time I was just elated to have a group of guys to coach.
Last one on that theme. Do you remember the very first game at Utah? Anything about that?
I do. I hadn't thought of it until you just mentioned that, but it was our opener that very first year, 1988, I believe it was, and I think we hung around for a quarter or two and then kind of got run out of the stadium, which you'd expect. But I do remember that it was a pretty exciting experience for me to be in a stadium, that size and a team, like Utah, and being in that environment was pretty cool.
The QB2 position, the battle between Lisk and Shelley. What do you want to see from those two this week moving forward?
Well, just performance in practice. I mean, good decisions, run the team the way it needs to be run, the offense, being, with preparation-wise, all the film study. There's a lot that goes into it. There's many factors that go into that decision, and Andy just felt last week that Drew had the better week of preparation and had performed the best, and it was close. It wasn't like it was, just a completely one-sided decision, but it's all about competition and preparation and doing things the right way, and Drew had an excellent week, so he got the nod.
Kyle, you're the only team in FBS that has not had a turnover or given up a sack. Does that kind of tie into what Tyler Huntley's doing well, or could you elaborate on why you're so successful in those regards?
Well, yeah, Paul mentioned as we were walking down the hall to come to hear this meeting. I didn't realize that we were the only school. I knew we hadn't given up a sack or a turnover, but I didn't know we were the only school that hadn't. I think that, Andy's philosophy on offense, number one, first and foremost, above everything else, take care of the football. And we've proven to do that in these first 2 weeks. Back to Tyler making good decisions and getting rid of the ball on time. That's helped in making for the 0 sacks to this point, as well as his elusiveness. He's had some situations where a guy not as athletic as him might have got sacked, but he's athletic enough to escape some of those pressures. And so it's it won't last forever, but it's been 2 good weeks of that, and we'll see. We'd love to extend it, but realistically, that's not going to be something that we can do the whole season, obviously. So we'll see, though.
Can you analyze the running backs behind Moss, how they're performing, what you like, and how they stack up?
Yeah, Jordan Wilmore is very dynamic. I was giving him a lot of accolades during fall camp. Still feel the same way. He's a guy that's got an elusiveness to him and a great feel for not feel for, but vision. He's got exceptional vision. He's powerful. He's 5'9", 205 pounds. Low center, a lot like Zach Moss in a lot of respects. Just really impressed with him so far. Now he's behind, obviously, Zach, and that's as far as the rest of the season, that's how it'll stay, barring injury or unforeseen things. But he's really impressed in his short time here. Devin Bromfield, tough as nails, exceptional pass protector. If you watch closely in the game, you saw him pick up a blitz or two and really stonewall the guy that was blitzing. Smart player, exceptional special teams guy as well. He's contributing there. DHC, Devontae Henry Cole, he's got some quickness and speed to him as well, and a lot like Jordan as far as low center of gravity and really put together, not very tall but thick. TJ Green just barely got healthy. He's been out for several weeks and he only got the 1 carry in the game on Saturday, but he was starting to come on at the end of last season. He really started to contribute and do some good things. He's not back to where he needs to be 100%. And then who am I missing there? Who? Oh, Vickers, yeah, he's a slot receiver that has got the ability. He's kind of a tweener. He's part running back, part slot receiver, and so he's a guy that every week's going to have a package for him specifically, and he'll line up in the backfield at times, and he's a guy that's got a skill set that Andy, and I've said this before, he seems to have a way of really maximizing and finding a role for everybody that has a potential contribution to make. And so Vickers, I think you're just starting hopefully to see the beginnings of what he can do. Because he was hurt also during fall camp. He missed a lot of fall camp.
Kel, I'm sure you're tracking most, if not all, of the advanced stats that have become kind of popular over the years. But what, maybe from your side,
Tracking all the what?
advanced stats? Maybe just more of the I guess, breakdowns in passing in the air yards or whatever those may be. Now that those things are becoming a little bit more prevalent in maybe regular people not coaching staffs, do you feel like that changes maybe how fans can view the game, or maybe how you're able to convey how well your team is doing to other people?
You're talking like pro football focus and all those things? Yeah, we utilize those things and have for a lot of years. They seem to be, like you just said, more prevalent than ever before. I think it's a good barometer in a lot of cases to determine how well players are doing. It's not always, the statistics can lie a little bit at times, just like they always have. But we use them, and they're more accessible to the fans now, I guess. And we'll just continue. We use them on both sides of the ball, and we also use them for self-scout. Scouting our own selves, which is as important as scouting your opponent. If you don't know what your opponent knows about yourself, then you're missing out. So.
You have these 16 players scheduled to graduate in December. How have you created this culture where that's the norm to be able to graduate in your middle of your senior year?
Well, we emphasize it, and that's usually what you emphasize you're going to get within reason. And we put a premium on academics and education, and not to say we're the only one that's do that, or in the country that does that, but we continually harp on it and preach it. We have an outstanding academic support team across the street there that is on top of their game, with the tutors and the learning specialists and that type of thing, that are very devoted and committed to what we're doing. And our players now, it's ingrained in our culture, and it's a source of pride for them. I mean, it's not uncool to be a good student here. It's cool to be a good student, which is great to see. And I appreciate you bringing that up, because that's the main reason they're here, is to graduate. And like you said, they're going to be graduating this December.
Kyle, last week you said that jerseys and jersey numbers aren't really a thing to you as probably an old school guy. But with this younger generation, it seems to be, a topic of, they like jerseys, they like social media. And I'm wondering, from your standpoint, at one point did you realize that you needed to expand as a staff to kind of expand your horizons even on the recruiting front? Because this is something that has changed, I think, within the last decade, where you can get to kids in different ways, whereas in the past it was probably just a phone call or an in-house visit.
You can elaborate on that when you talk about expanding on numbers.
Just expanding your overall staff of, your social media team, giving the equipment guys,
okay.
So much free reign to be able to do different things and promoting what they have going on. It's just so different compared to what it was just about 10 years ago.
Definitely, I see what you're saying. Yeah, the social media aspect of it is a huge part of recruiting. And not only for us to have a social media staff to put our brand out there, I guess you could say, but for our assistant coaches to really be tuned into social media and be adept at, navigating through the different mediums that are out there, because I'm not. I stink at it. I'm just telling you right now. And so it's good and I get guided in the right direction, and they help me with some things. But it's definitely a part of recruiting the athletes nowadays, a huge part, maybe the number one part. I mean, that's maybe the most important thing as far as communication and interacting. As far as the uniforms, there was just magically more uniforms in our building than before. I don't know how, I wasn't say, hey, we need more uniforms. They just, more colors, more helmets, more different variations. That just kind of happened without me paying attention to it. Not to diminish our Under Armour, because our Under Armour sponsorship and partnership has been great. They treat us awesome, but that's just something that's never been at the forefront of my mind.
Do you remember back in the day, was that a theme among players that they would be, generally, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you probably just had home and aways back in the day.
Oh yeah, that was it.
The people weren't particularly stoked to wear red or white or blue or white.
Nope, there was you didn't even think about it. You just knew that if you're home, you're wearing this color, and if you're away, you're that color. And same thing with, when you went to your opponents, you know exactly what they were going to be wearing because they wore it every week. And so that was a lot more standardized back in the day. Yeah. Okay, guys, thank you for your time.